long as it's green.
And may those who work for you know you see and respect them. May you learn to cultivate the art of presence in order to engage with those who you meet. When someone fails or disappoints you, may the graciousness with which you engage be their stairway of renewal and refinement. May you treasure the gifts of the mind through reading and creative thinking, so that you continue as a servant of the frontier, where the new will draw its enrichment from the old, and you never become functionary. May you know the wisdom of deep listening, the healing of wholesome words, the encouragement of the appreciative gaze, the decorum of held dignity, the springtime edge of a bleak question. May you have minds that love frontiers, so that you can evoke the bright fields that lie beyond the view of the regular eye. May you all have good friends to mirror your blind spots. And may leadership be for you a true adventure of growth. Amen.
Thank you. All right, it is 7:01, so I'm going to call our Tuesday, September 17th Common Council meeting to order. Megan, would you please take the roll?
Davis.
Here.
Lampy. Board.
Here.
Bartz.
Here.
Blanky.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Schmid.
Here.
Wetzel. Moldenhauer.
Here.
Very good. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the first item on our agenda is the minutes of the council meeting from September 3rd. Anyone have any comments or questions on any of those minutes? All right, then let's go to comments and suggestions from citizens present. Megan,
Kathy Riedel.
if you would please just state your name and address, anyone who comes to the mic.
I'm Kathy Riedel. I live at 900 South 8th Street, District 5 here in Watertown. I'm here to talk tonight about the city's ETF insurance, which is on the agenda for tonight for a vote on the resolution to leave the ETF. I wanted to start off by saying after one of the last meetings, I reached out to all of our retirees out of the police department to advise them that this was on the table. We know that some of our retirees are on the ETF insurance plan post-retirement. However, I did not know who specifically fell into that category. And I just want to read a couple of the responses I got. Hi, Kathy. Thanks for the heads up on the health insurance. My wife and I are healthy and happy, thankfully, especially with the disappointing news about getting kicked off the ETF program. We are so regretting the need to reinvent that aspect of our retirement plan. Please keep us posted on any developments. Kathy, thanks for the heads up. It's very thoughtful of you to notify everybody. I get my insurance through the healthcare exchange, so this does not directly affect me. I am sad to see the city leaving ETF. I'm not convinced that will be the best long-term solution, but it is what it is. I don't miss having stuff like this to deal with. I kept the health insurance through the state with quartz. I'm assuming this may affect me. If it does, it would be nice if the city actually cared a rip for retired employees and would notify them. All of our doctors are set up through UW Hospital. Keep me up to date. I'll be out of town for a couple of weeks, but please let me know if there's anything else. Most of the guys didn't keep it because of the cost, but I would rather pay up front than getting hit with a bill that could bankrupt me. Those are just some of the responses I got from our recent retirees. We got an explanation sheet last week, I believe it was, explaining a lot of the questions that had been asked of this transition. And one of the things about that was that the city was going to offer help to retirees to find alternate health care arrangements. My question would be exactly what type of help is being offered. Are they just going to be given a sheet to say, here's who you can call, or is somebody actually going to help people go through that process and navigate that? Another thing that was brought up was that the city was going to set aside a fund for the possibility of having to re-enter into the ETF at a later date because of the penalty charges. So the city potentially has a preparation plan for upwards of, we're talking millions of dollars, but there's no mention of the surcharges that would be assessed to all of the employees for either 2 or 3 years. One agency was on a 3-year surcharge plan of 9%, 6%, and 3% just to re-enter the ETF. And by the state regulations, that has to be paid by the employee and not the city.
I failed to inform you that there's 3 minutes. So for everybody else, we have a 3-minute. I normally let people go a few comments past the dingle, so.
Okay. So Act 12, the shared revenue, which was awarded to the city in the upwards of $700,000-ish, that was to be used only for law enforcement, fire protection, EMS services, emergency response communications, public works, courts, and transportation. Something that concerned me was from a finance committee meeting in August of 2023. There are notes that input was sought from the league and that it was the city's belief that as long as those budgets in those eligible areas total at least the increase in the shared revenue, the funds can be distributed throughout the budget. So that money was supposed to be earmarked for those specific services to include the raises for police and fire. So if it wasn't used for those purposes, what was that money spent on? And I know I'm over, so I can't discuss the rest. Thank you.
Greg Wellick.
Good evening, Greg Wellick, Union President, Watertown Firefighters, Local 877. I'm here to comment on the insurance issue that's in front of the council this evening. I spoke to finance at the last finance meeting when this was voted on. I'd like to reiterate, I understand the position that the city and the council are in with raises and tax dollars and cost of everything that goes up throughout, from diesel fuel to salt for the roads to lawnmower blades for cutting the parks. We've weighed this on raises for employees that are non-reps versus having health insurance that can stay. And it was described to me as it would be a wage reduction staying with the insurance and having the increase. I took our top firefighter paramedic pay starting January 1 of 2025 and included that raise. The out-of-pocket cost that switching to Dean from the ETF imposes on the employees, and a single employee on a single insurance at that pay scale would need a 1.5% pay increase to cover those additional costs that they're expected to pay. A family plan is upwards of 2.6% that the raises would need to go up above and beyond what they already are January 1st to cover those extra out-of-pocket costs. Those extra out-of-pocket costs are things with the ETF on the plan. We hit our max deductible. Mine's $500 as a single person. That is all my out-of-pocket is for the year. I don't have any other co-pays. I don't have anything else. I would rather pay a couple $200 doctor visits or something like that and I know I'm done when I'm done. So switching that plan over affects employees on that aspect of it also. I think there's a lot of questions and things that need to be addressed. I understand that the option of leaving expenditure restraints is on the table. I see both sides of it and the cost that that has, because not only is it $390,000 we're talking about, it's $400 and some thousand that we have to make up on that other side of it. The fund balance that we try to carry at around 25% could be used to offset some of that cost for the year. Being into the state maintenance plan this year and out of the normal run-of-the-mill basic insurance with ETF has created an extra problem this year versus just normal increases that would have been encountered. That could be gone next year, it could not. There's options, possibilities. I think that there's time yet before we have to notify the ETF of our decision on, I believe, October 15th. Please don't quote me on that. That some things could be figured out, and there's finance and council meetings between now and then if there's not 100% comfort level going forward to look at some options in the next few weeks before making a decision at a minimum. Thank you.
It's October 1st, just for awareness. They changed it, yeah.
Bill Hugan.
Hi, Mayor. So, I guess we were just a little, maybe we're jumping the gun here because we're not quite sure what the process is as to what's going on with the annexation of the land that we talked about at the Planning Commission meeting, and I see it's not really on the agenda or anything other than a couple of ordinances. So I'm just wondering if, I guess in the interest of brevity, if maybe it would be better for us to just not, and wait till the next meeting when there's actually going to be a little bit more discussion on it. So, I'm
The
asking
ordinance
you-
tonight is for the annexation.
Right,
That's it, though. It's just
Okay.
the land. Yep.
okay.
I can't talk a whole lot back. I'm ready, like,
I know.
Steven's gonna turn around soon and give me that stink eye for going 2 people in a row with an answer. But
Okay.
that is still on the agenda for tonight.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so then moving forward from that is to actually approving the plans and things like that that Luce has. That's not on the agenda, and that would be coming up at another meeting.
You
Okay.
got it. Yep.
Okay, then I'm good, and we'll come next time.
Thank you. Is anyone remotely that would like to comment? Okay. We do have another opportunity at the end of our council meeting as well. So let's move to reports. You have the Historic Preservation and Downtown Design Commission minutes from March 27th and April 6th, Tourism from July 11th, Watertown Housing Authority from July 25th, Licensing from July 31st, the Plan Commission from August 12th, Public Works from August 13th, Park, Rec, and Forestry from August 19th, Senior Center Advisory Board from August 20th, Finance from August 26th, Public Works and Downtown Design Commission minutes from August 27th, the Zoning Board of Appeals from August 27th, Public Works from August 27th, Historic Preservation and Downtown Design from August 28th, Public Safety from September 4th, and Public Works from September 10th. Can you tell we told them to get their minutes submitted? So that's why the long list. Megan did a good job of making sure we got caught up. Does anyone have any other questions or comments on the minutes? Yes, sir.
You alluded to it, but I was going to ask, why did we get an explanation as to why Historic Preservation and Downtown Design Commission had not submitted minutes in 3 meetings?
Did you hear anything, Megan?
Because that's our communication from these committees.
I know they did not have a meeting a couple months in a row.
Okay, but they had one March 27th and then April 6th.
Yeah.
So at the very least, we should have, if it's an issue of approval, I know at Public Safety, we submit our minutes unapproved to the council and then approve them at a later meeting.
Right.
And if that's the issue that's holding them up, maybe we need to communicate to some of these committees.
You want to
that it's
just
better
clarify
to-
that with them? Okay, good point. We can do that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Next is communications and recommendations. Mark just left. But first up is our space needs analysis presentation. But what I'm going to do is, are you set up here already? Yeah. Okay. Since Mark stepped out, I think I'll have you come up, and then I'm gonna just hop one item to the fire department monthly report for August while we give Mark a moment to return. Does anyone have questions on the fire department report for August? Well, that didn't buy me a lot of time. Okay, well, if you're ready to go, I will switch over. We'll hop back up to the space needs analysis presentation. We have about a 5-minute presentation. They are not going to step through every item in that report. So we're just going to do a little high-level review and then answer any questions you all may have. As you saw in the packet, we aren't asking for any like formal action tonight, but if you do have a preference, like, oh, let's have finance flush this out more, that's good to hear. Or, oh, we'd like Mark to look at funding, or whatever your feedback is, we're open to hearing that so that we have some next steps. But are we ready to switch over? Okay, and then is that mic on, Stephen? You know what?
Is that okay?
Yep, that sounds great. Thank you. It's all yours.
We all set?
Yep.
Okay. Like the mayor had said, we'll keep this real kind of short. A lot of you have read through these documents already. I just want to give you a quick overview of where we've been, how we got to where we've been, and then also open things up so that we can have a period of questions and answers for things that would surface. So in a nutshell, back at the end of June is when we kind of started this project, and we had a kickoff meeting with the mayor and the leadership team, which included multiple departments around, and we were engaged to study the space needs for not just one facility, but multiple facilities within the city, which included the City Hall, the Senior and Community Center over on First Street, Parks and Recreation, and Forestry. We added that building into the study over on Bonner, the Health Department on First Street as well, and then, of course, Public Works with their street and solid waste division over on First Street as well. In looking at that, it was multiple departments, specifically within City Hall was a big component of it. Looking at all the different departments, speaking with the department heads, we spent a lot of time at the very beginning studying what are the things that are going to make this project successful in the future. What are the common themes that would start to surface? And through the interviews that we had, interviewing individual staff members, discussions within the larger group of a thing, is a couple of things started to surface right away. First and foremost was, what do we need to do to improve the efficiency of the services that we provide to this community? And the efficiencies are already there, but is there ways that we can improve the accessibility for it, the quality of the services that we're doing? A lot of that can happen through modernization of the facility, meeting accessibility requirements, and then just some of the ideas of how we can arrange things around within the building. And the other component of that, specifically with the City Hall surface then, is how do we get more of these customer-facing departments to be coordinated with each other? There's a lot of movement that people have to walk around inside the building to get to different departments. That does create some security risks. Those were things that we wanted to also look at, and how can we improve some of those situations. So after the interviews and going through all the individual pieces on there, we had then engaged in a Spark session that I don't know if it's necessary to show photos or anything, but yeah. These are some of the ones that were in the document. The Spark session was with city staff members. This was from a different location here. But what we did is we sat down and we drew up ideas working with departments, and very fast, very off the cuff ideas, working and developing ideas together, getting bubble diagrams, planning things out, seeing where we can get these facilities in the future. And then we concluded that in the afternoon by presenting a series of different ideas to everyone. And then we went through a process of people commenting and voting and giving their ideas. And then we had some online responses that people responded to, because a lot of these were put online for people to review. And the one thing that's important, I think, for people to realize is that this was just an initial study that we're doing. Nothing is set in stone. There's going to be some variation as things progress and the project moves into a future phase. you know, just because we're showing a department here, maybe we might find out later that we want to slide it over a little bit. So there's a whole bunch of those things that we'll continue to do. But the important part of analyzing that is it got us to understand what the availability is within each department, within each facility. Also what their staffing needs are. We had to look at those. Getting space needs put together in terms of modernization of different areas. One thing we commonly heard within City Halls, a need for more conference space, storage space, just to allow meetings and things to be much more efficient. Another common one is obviously the meeting room here. We'd like to make that bigger in the future so that we can hold bigger, larger crowds in here so that we can be more actively involved with the community that's in there. So going through all those, we had a series of studies, and you know, we won't go through all of them that were on there, but there was a lot of different variations and studies that we went through for different locations. On there we had how do we improve some of the situations with the programs that they wanted to, and just move very quickly. And then we had one selection for City Hall that we went and expanded a little bit further, and you know, got to that point where we started adding some dollars, which you guys have seen in their projections for what those costs may be in the future as the project progresses. So I think with that, not to talk too much about it, that we'll just kind of open it up for questions.
For the sake of the folks in the room, is there one page that shows a nice summary that they can take a peek at, or maybe?
For City Hall? Or?
Yeah, I mean, or even just the cost estimate page. That's probably where a lot of questions will center around.
Yeah.
What question, do you all have questions? Comments? I want to just, I'm sorry, I forgot to clarify one thing. It was in the memo, but I just want to say for the sake of the conversation, this initial work was funded through ARPA, so we used some of our American Rescue Plan Act dollars. Obviously the impetus was the movement of the fire department and then ensuring that we're utilizing our existing spaces to the best of the ability that we have. So, yes, sir.
So I have more of a question in terms of what our process is going to be and how fast we can essentially get some of these costs built into the 5-year capital plan. I think, as I've expressed in the past, I'm interested in basically some 20-year bonding to address these versus what we have in the capital plan, which is kind of help cover some this year, some the other year, but basically to really sort of bundle it all up and address whatever needs we decide is appropriate at the same time.
Yeah, so Mark and I have discussed that in, you know, what type of pace are we on? I have the budget. We have right now the capital budget's at $6 million. It means I have a few million to cut out of it in the next week. So I don't see the latitude to get it into this year's capital spending.
No, I said the 5-year
Right.
capital
So
plan.
I'm just teeing up a sequence here. So
Okay.
considering that we don't need it now, the next time the 5-year capital plan gets picked up in earnest is like May. And so we were having some conversations today on if this is something that gets worked on in the spring. So if we start to really hammer through details and sequencing and funding in May or April or March, that may be a good time, March or April, before we would actually move it into a 5-year capital budget in late May, early June.
Is there contingency in these numbers? Or how did we come up with these numbers?
Is there contingency built in?
Yes, we do have contingencies built into there, and the numbers that we put together are based off of our experience. We do a lot of hard bids on projects, so we're generally pretty up to date with current costs associated with projects. And
So you have an estimator in office?
yes, yeah.
Okay. How many square feet? I got all kinds of questions.
Sure.
But how many square feet is this room?
Oh.
Boy, off the top of my head right now, we have that listed in here. I'd have to look
My
it up.
eyesight's weak, but when I look at the drawings for this room compared to the proposal for removed or renewed council chambers, doesn't look like we're getting any bigger space. And that is one of the things that I read in the document that we were
Yeah.
looking for. So just arbitrarily question of how many square feet is this space today and how many square feet is that one
Municipal
proposed?
court says existing square feet, 2,278, new square footage, 3,356.
Where are you at?
Page 43 of the packet, municipal court, judge, clerk, council chambers. So does that include the clerk, the judge's office as well in that number? I'm guessing
Yes,
it does.
it does, yeah.
So take out the size of, you know, Mason's office, my office. Take out, I mean, their space is similar in size to ours, and that's baked into that number too. Do you have
Yeah.
a number for just the chambers?
I'm sorry, I'm trying to look that up right now.
It's a premature question, but that
Yeah.
would be one of my questions going forward. Right, if we're talking about a bigger space.
Correct, and again, with these Spark sessions, because they're just all hand drawings and we're going very, very fast, we're diagramming things, so those diagrams will fluctuate, and as we get into it, we know what our goal is, and we'll have a program of space specifically for when we're studying this.
But
this
some of the
space here
spaces
for
are
it.
locked in based on the existing structure, right?
To a certain extent, yes. There are some things that we can do with structure. You know, we like to tell people we can do anything you want, but
As long as we
there's
have dollars.
costs associated with it, so we try to work as best we can within the existing structures.
So, another simple question.
Sure.
With the exception of the fire department, how many employees are in this building today?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
How many employees is planned for in the expansion?
We did have each department consider their staffing needs into the future, and so they individually responded to that during meetings with FEH. I don't know if you
Correct.
kept a tally of those new offices.
Not in this document, but we do have that, as well as what their 5 and 10-year projections are for staffing.
Can you make sure, please, Mark, that we get that answer, so we can get that forwarded to you? And then, honestly, I'd likely have to manually count how many people are in this building. We lack data warehousing in that way,
Sorry.
so.
So follow-up question to that is, how many square feet per person do you use when you do the space planning?
It varies depending on the use and the function that they have. In some cases, it can be as small as 15 square feet per person.
So how many functions did you plan for this building?
Every department that's currently in here, along with the
No, I
expansion.
mean, how many different functions vis-à-vis an employee? You know, that 15 square foot employee, and then the judge with his 1,000 square feet, being facetious. But
Sure.
everything in between. So how many of those steps do you have in this plan?
For the concept plans that are put on there, that we'd have to go back through each one of those, but that's how we get the total square footage for what we need.
Yeah, I
Again,
know I
it's a-
used to do this.
Yeah,
So-
because especially within the city hall, we're kind of locked in within the parameters that we have to work with, so it's more about moving spaces around and trying to get those based on what their staffing needs. And usually when we look at a staffing need for someone new coming in, we're looking at around, to start with, probably 150 square feet in terms of allocating a new office space, or whether it's a cubicle. That also includes, typically we add another 20% onto the square footage for miscellaneous circulation, walls, you know, unusable spaces that get into it.
Okay.
He paused, so let me check with the other side of the room.
I have lots of questions, but this isn't any immediate action, correct?
No,
Okay.
so
And one of my questions, you're going to get an answer to in regards to the estimated number of projected employees and what
Yep.
they're forecasting, so we don't have that.
Yep.
The following question is, where's the projection for the money coming from? Because unlike other members of this council, I am not a fan of bonds or anything like that, because this is projecting tens of millions of dollars, not counting employee cost projections over the next 5 to 7 years. That's currently unfunded. That doesn't match our projected growth at that same period of time. So I have lots of concerns about the cart before the horse in this concept.
Yeah, so I want to just level set, just to make sure everyone's operating from the same, position. We wanted to evaluate, and I don't want to like put you on the hot seat. So we wanted to evaluate our space needs so that we could make informed decisions. There is no, this thing doesn't even live in a budget. There's no decision on the table before you. Where's the thought process on funding? Well, when we received the numbers, Mark and I chatted and we decided we wanted to see what the potential of funding something like this looks like to be able to answer your question. We have one funding strategy. If you paid attention to the fire station, we probably did 20 of those, at least. I'm not even being facetious. So we've done one. And the one that we've done looks at splitting it up over the course of years. So to answer your question succinctly, we've done it initially to know, is it possible without a massive increase to the mill rate? Like akin to what you all experienced for the fire station, it's possible. How possible, to what value, to what end, like none of that is in this kind of first initial phase. So what we wanted to be able to do tonight was say, we've completed the project. This is what we're looking at space-wise. The good news is we don't, with the exception of Park and Rec, we don't need more space. We just need to use our space wisely, I think is the take home that we've learned, which is good. And that a lot of this renovated cost is attributable to deferred maintenance. I have been a part of pushing off a boiler a few times, knowing this was coming. We, have aged equipment. This is the best tangible example I can give. If we're gonna reuse the fire station, there is one toilet on the first floor. Not one bathroom, one toilet. So there's no air conditioning, right? It's we're gonna have to invest in some of those items if we wanna reuse this space. So what we didn't wanna do though is start investing in a boiler, which we've talked about, not knowing how the space would need to potentially be reused. So it's just allowing us to make more informed short-term choices and have an idea of what a long-term strategy would look like. Does that help put some boundaries around where we're at today at least?
Yeah, it helps clarify a couple of the key points. I have other apprehensions in regards to other issues that aren't directly tied to the tangible things in regards to compliance, right? If you have 15 employees, you need more than one toilet. So I know there's a calculation for that. So, but that helps to give me some more context.
Yeah. So we're nowhere, this is just here it is. So this is what we know. We know that it's possible without adding on, even to bring on more people potentially as future needs change. If it does, that's the good news. The bad news is in order to reshuffle the deck, is what I keep calling it, it's gonna cost a little bit of money. So, others, yes, sir.
See the council take as a whole, get together with some strategic type meetings and sit down as a body and everybody put the point of views together and come up with some good looking reviews of how we could put this in perspective where we could make sense of it but not spend a lot of dollars. I mean, as a body. Okay. I think it's very important we do it that way. You got to be careful with this. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, it sure is. Okay, that's good feedback. That's helpful for us to hear. Not your turn yet. Sorry. I want to make sure everyone goes first before I come back. Mr. Blanky.
So it was a long report, and I may have missed it, but you mentioned the improvement in efficiencies. Is there any projected, and I know it's a difficult number to project, but dollars that we would save through these efficiencies?
When I refer to the efficiencies, that's more on the function within the departments in terms of how far do they have to walk to get to a conference room, where the break room is, the toilets having to go up on different floors. Is there efficiencies that we can get in how people move around the building? So it's not necessarily performance savings, but we can make things a lot more efficient for the consumer, the customer coming in for services that they're not having to be bounced around throughout the entire building. And that's part of some of the security discussions that we had as well, is that we want to try to make those efficiencies work a lot more for the individual people.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Limpy, you're up. Oh, I'm sorry. No, keep going. Pump
Just
fake.
the one other thing I will say, that going through this, I believe the term is sticker shock. $20,630,000 $549.07 for the preferred package. That is a huge sum of money. As we know from building a new fire department, we could build a new building for that.
Hey,
So
don't get any
my point is $20 million for renovations of existing buildings. We could build a new building for that, probably for less than that. That is an insane number. So that's just, and I know this is very early, very
Yeah.
conceptual, but
Yep.
I just wanted
Yeah.
to throw that out there.
All right, oh, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, it's important too to note that that number also includes multiple buildings within the city, or improvements at those. And a lot of that is adding extra services that they need, extra office spaces to meet their projections. I agree to a certain extent. One of the things that's not in here is land costs. If you're looking for a new facility, those would be added into it if that's the direction that you chose to go. Yeah.
I think it's zoned correctly too, actually. I think we're gonna go to Mr. Lampy.
Oh, good. I have something new to talk about. Because of the comparison to the fire station, I mean, essentially what we're looking at in this proposal anyway, for City Hall improvements only, if I'm adding these up, it looks like it's about 13.6, 13.7 for City Hall. The $20 million number there, as he mentioned, is for a couple of things. My original comment, though, was a little bit more contained, and that was the hope that we would look at contiguous parking and ADA accessibility into the building as one of the top line options. When we designed the library build-out, that became one of the key things, is making sure that people could pull up in their cars, stop getting out in the street, but actually pull up in a controlled parking lot, get out, and safely enter the building where they could access an elevator and get to wherever they needed to go. And I hope that that remains one of the key design factors as we move forward in any reconfiguration of the buildings. Last comment is that generally I think Alderman Schmidt and I are aligned on one thing, which is definitely visibility into finances and planning of the facility. As I've mentioned a number of times now, I want to see a much bigger number slotted in our capital budget. Town Square, that's like a $7 million project. No buildings. Library was about 11. That was a couple years ago with fantastic economic climate. Stuff costs money. So if we have a $6 million plug in the capital budget, it's unrealistically low.
Right now, it's a $300,000 one, but that was just a placeholder, and I will be cutting it. Yes.
One other question. It mentioned the senior center. Does the senior center really need some work? I mean.
Yes. Yes, I mean, of all of them, the senior center is the staff spaces. They are sandwiched into their staff space. And we recently had to realign tenants in the building in order to have space for, like our aquatics manager is essentially in a very small office. Stephanie Jewell is in a very, very small office. They used to be like I think they did the foot clinic perhaps in that little space. So yeah, I know you will, so I'd encourage you to swing by. I'm sure Christine would be happy to show you the configuration that they're in right now. Dale's office is one that comes to mind too. So yeah, and then I think part of is the Bonner Street staff as well. I mean, their kitchen is like plywood cabinets, countertops. So yeah.
Yeah, they've got some rough places that they're working in there right now.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
But in all the buildings, one of the common themes, going back to your comment, was the ADA accessibility, making those improvements, especially here in City Hall, getting bathrooms updated to current standards for accessibility, even doorknobs. That's a problem that we have throughout the whole facility. So that does eat up a lot of the cost on these projects.
Yes.
Pardon my bluntness, but I have a hard time wrapping my head around government and efficiency in the same sentence. Especially in regards to, it's just, I've got almost 20 years in government and those two things rarely go together. So I appreciate we're addressing one of the biggest issues is modernizing conveniences and accessibility issues. I totally on board with that. That's not even an issue with me. But I'd love to see an actual streamlined, realistic brass tacks. Like, is it because we have too many employees we need to have extra space, or is it because we have compliance issues that we need to address? Are there legitimate safety concerns in regards to quality material, construction methodology that we need to address? Is there mitigation we're gonna have to take into account? Because a lot of these are older buildings.
Mm-hmm.
So these are gonna be things that we're gonna need answers to before we can realistically move forward.
Yeah.
And I'm not a fan of expanding government, you know this about me,
do.
so
I'm
I'm all
actually-
about the efficiency thing.
I'm actually
so.
proud of you for how long you went without talking about efficient. When someone said efficiency, I was like, Eric.
Nice.
No, I hear you, and this is good feedback, you guys. Like this is, I've said it. This is a jumping off point, and I think what I'm hearing though is like a distilling down of the like the must to dos is kind of a next natural step. Some financing pictures are probably a next natural step. We're in no rush to do this, so it's the way we should be. It's the methodical nature. It sounds like some conversations then to bring those two items kind of together would be a good next step. Anyone else want to add to this convo?
I actually think it needs to go to the finance committee to start talking about that in the future. I mean, get through the budget season, but then how do you approach this in the future? Because
Okay.
you're right, it's not going to happen in '25.
Yeah, no. Nor was that ever the plan, though. Like, just to be
Right.
very, very clear about that. Okay. Well, I feel like we have some good next steps to go forward with. I'm grateful that you all have awareness of the results of the assessment. And I thank you. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Other than it's been great working with all the departments here. It's very good to work with communities that they've got a real good passion about and making sure they're serving their citizens well. And it was very clear to us that that's what the goal was, so.
Good.
it was
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. All right. Switch you back over here. All right, then let's move to new business. We just have one committee appointment for your guys' consideration. If there would be a motion on that. Mr. Smith?
I'd make a motion to approve your appointment to the Housing Authority.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Moldenhauer. Any discussion from anyone? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, in just a moment, I'm going to take that motion to go to closed session, so, yep, start gathering. You can leave your stuff. You'll be back in a few minutes. So I would look for a motion to go to closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.85, paren 1, paren G. This is to confer with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation which it is or is likely to become involved. This pertains to a claim from J.B. Is there such a motion? Motion by Mr. Barth, second by Mr. Board. Before I take the roll, for those of you attending remotely, it will just be dark and quiet, and then we'll be back in just a minute. Megan, would you please take the roll?
Bartz?
Aye.
Blanky?
Aye.
Smith?
Aye.
Schmid?
Aye.
Wetzel?
Aye.
Moldenhauer?
Aye.
Davis? Lampy?
Chief.
Board?
Aye.
Motion passed 9-0.
Chief, would you please, do you know where Lisa is in this little room in the hallway? Would you please make sure she's not streaming? Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, Stephen.
The city received a claim for a
So I just want to make sure everyone can still hear you too, though. Okay. Everyone's standing out there in the dark. Okay, Stephen, can you make sure Lisa's back on now? Okay, very good. All right, our next item is the accounts payable. Anybody have questions for Mr. Stevens on that? Who jinxed it? Normally it's me, yeah. All right, now let's move to miscellaneous business. You have the payroll summary from August 21st to September 3rd and cash and investment from August 31st. Comments or questions on either of those? All right. All right, let's move to licenses. The first is a memo from the clerk highlighting one approval with conditions and one recommended approval with conditions and one recommended denial. That takes us to our first action item, which is an application for a Class B malt and liquor license from Kathy B's LLC, the Buffalo Bar. Ashley Berry is the agent, located at 814 North Church Street. This is for licensing year July 1, 24 to June 30, 25. This was the former Kathy B's LLC doing business as Kathy's Buffalo Bar. Is there a motion on this one?
So moved.
Motion by, can I backtrack a second? This one did have 3 conditions.
I'd like to make a motion to approve with the conditions that the filing of successor conditional use permit to zoning department, the approved fire inspection, and the surrender of the current liquor license.
Thank you. Was that a second, Mr. Bartz? Okay, with a second by Mr. Bartz. Comments or questions? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, very good. So you'll get an email from the clerk just so we can button up those last few items. You guys are good to go unless you want to hang out, but you're welcome to, but most people don't. So, all right, our next is a review and take action. This is an application for a Class A malt and liquor license for Watertown Liquor Depot, doing business as Liquor Depot. Hayden Heisel as the agent at 1907 Market Way Suite C. I believe this was recommended for denial by the licensing board. Yes, sir.
I'd make a motion that we deny this application for the license based upon Category 5 and Category 6.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Second by Mr. Moldenhauer. Questions or comments? All in favor of the recommended denial, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, let's move to our ordinances. The first is ordinance 24-22. This is an ordinance to amend Chapter 550 of the official zoning map of the City of Watertown. This is here from me and the Plan Commission on its second reading. Motion by Mr. Wetzel, second by Mr. Board. Questions or comments? Megan?
Wetzel? Moldenhauer?
Aye.
Davis? Aye. Lampy? Ford?
Aye.
Bartz?
Aye.
Blanky?
Aye.
Smith? Schmid? Motion passed 9-0.
Very good. Next is ordinance 24-23. This is an ordinance for attachment of real estate by boundary adjustment from the town of Watertown to the city of Watertown for N9009 County Road A. This is here for me and the Plan Commission on the second reading. Mr. Blanky?
I will move for ordinance 24-23.
Motion by Mr. Blanky, seconded by Mr. Board. Questions, comments? Megan?
Blanky?
Aye.
Smith?
Aye.
Schmid?
Aye.
Wetzel?
Aye.
Moldenhauer? Davis? Lampy? Ford? Bartz?
Aye.
Motion passed 9-0.
Very good. Next is ordinance 24-24. This is an ordinance to amend section 136-11, responsibilities of the city of Watertown, in our general code, again from me and the Finance Committee on the first reading. Mr. Lampy?
Move approval of ordinance 24-24.
Motion by Mr. Lampy, second by Ms. Davis. Comments or questions for the city attorney? Yes, sir.
So it's no secret that I have reservations anytime we hand power over to an unelected representative of the city as a city employee. I can't justify some of these conditions for the sake of efficiency over a couple weeks to grant authority to the attorney to make decisions on our behalf, even though I see there's a caveat that we have an opportunity to written notice to request us be notified. That's backwards to me. If there's an issue involving the city, it should come to us and we consult you for how we should do things, not we give up our authority to you as an employee when we were elected representatives. So as that being my key issue with it, I can't support this.
Mr. Lampe.
I think from the perspective of finance, and again, I'll let some of the other folks speak there, the language that is added here essentially clarifies role of attorney, powers of attorney, times they should check in. For us, that definitely felt like that was something that better enumerated when and how a city attorney should be engaged and how the city attorney should engage folks around it. So in some respects, I feel that this actually addresses the core complaint that you have on the table.
Others? Megan.
Lampe.
Aye.
Ward. Bartz.
Aye.
Blanky.
Aye.
Smith. Schmid.
No.
Wetzel. Moldenhauer. Davis. Motion passed 8-1.
Okay, thank you. Next is ordinance 24-13. This is an ordinance to amend section 410-56A, smoking prohibited places. This is here for Mr. Lampe and Park, Rec, and Forestry on its first reading.
I move to approve 2425 or 2413 as stated.
Motion by Mr. Lampe, second by Mr. Bartz. Comments or questions? Mr. Blanky.
I would like to make a motion to amend the ordinance to read within 25 feet rather than 50 feet.
In section A to B, right?
Yes.
2AB. Oh, A2AB.
No, it's A2B.
All right the first time.
Okay. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Smith. Discussion on the amended. Yes.
So in the council packet, the Park, Rec, and Forestry minutes and the memo from our Director of Parks, Recreation, and Forestry, the recommendation from UW Population Health Sciences says that secondhand smoke is detected at 23 feet from the source and irritation levels begin at 13 feet. Thus, the recommendations by those boards for 25 feet. The 50 feet argument is arbitrary, has no basis in the research and quote unquote the science. That is why I believe we should go with the 25 feet as recommended by UW Population Health Sciences.
Others? Mr. Lampe.
Generally, I'd say 50 feet. It started that way essentially because of the ordinance that we copied from another municipality had the 50 feet. So there's some existing Wisconsin precedent for 50 feet.
Mr. Smith?
Yes, this proposed ordinance has quite a history. If not for the specific detail, certainly for the duration in which it's been under consideration. I've been on the health board for the entire period of time in which this has been initially proposed. It's come to the council on previous occasion. It's been referred to different committees for review. And it has taken on a life of its own as it relates to both the approach being taken, which is totally commendable. Every initiative here is to try to promote the health of the community, and this is one way which we can ensure that a known threat or risk is being addressed. The problem I have is similar to the one mentioned by Alderman Blanky. It appears from all of the information being presented for purposes of justifying this regulation is that the health benefit will be met with a 25-foot designated protection zone. Where the 50 feet comes from, you cannot tell from anything that is being presented or documented here. As a matter of fact, in the memo, it uses the pronoun "we felt it best" to extend it to 50 feet, which is a memo from somebody to the Park and Rec Commission, which received this long after it had been initiated by the Health Department and the Health Board, and was the entity to which the council had referred it back. This is an instance where I think we need to take a balanced approach between the legitimate desire and responsibility of the council to promote good health in the community, and at the same time recognize that a legal activity which is participated in by a fair percentage of the people in the city of Watertown, who have every right as taxpaying citizens to use the parks just like anybody else without being singled out for excessive regulation. And I'm convinced that the 25 feet is a good balance between the two. Now, over the entire period of time that this has been under consideration, I have 100% supported what we have been attempting to do. Supported it at every single iteration at the health board, was perfectly prepared to support any reasonable approach that would promote the general health of the community. But unless there is some evidence other than what certain other communities may do, which to me is a pretty poor basis of putting another layer of government regulation or an extension of that beyond which it is necessary, I've seen nothing to suggest that 50 feet is a distance that comes with any scientific underpinning. And I think a good balance where we send the message that we are committed to good public health and will take steps to reduce the risk, ensuring that that health be promoted, and at the same time respecting the legitimate legal activities of many who will be using this park, not be impinged upon beyond a reasonable and demonstrated basis for the decision. So I'm going to support the 25 feet, even though I've supported this at every other step along the way, just because it is the balanced approach to what we've been trying to do for well over a year.
Thank you. Yes?
So I was reviewing this with some people that are members of the community who are of much younger persuasion than myself. The term fascist came up relating to this ordinance specifically. I've been called many things in my career. That's never been one of them. I would agree that 25 is far better than 50, but these are arbitrary numbers to start with. And this is a very lengthy list of 11 different categories of locations with not a single map to put in perspective. So to say there's a carte blanche radius around all of these different things, that is a massive, massive area of the city that all of a sudden now is prohibited from executing a lawful right. So I can't in good conscience say I'm going to support something that's going to strip somebody of their rights because someone else's feelings are hurt, or it may be a health issue. Because nowhere does it say that somebody has to be present for this to be in effect. You could have somebody out fishing all by themselves in a kayak down the river, but because they're in 25 feet of a pier, they're now in violation of city code. I have a serious issue with that. No one would say that there's an issue if we carved out specifically for playgrounds while minor children are present. I don't think you have any pushback with that. But a carte blanche, broad brush approach using other municipalities as an example, I find appalling that we're willing to just take people's rights away because a handful of people have an issue with it. I can't support that. I won't be called a fascist.
Are we debating the 2550 amendment right now?
We are.
Can I call the question on that?
Sure. I wasn't prepared for that. Let me just get out my cheat sheet.
It's 2/3.
Come on, man.
I do it once a year, sorry.
Well, I mean, you could at least give me like a, I'm gonna do that, get out the cheat sheet kind of look. End debate. All right. Is there a second to that? All right, second by Mr. Board. That's not debatable. We need 2/3 of the vote. No, that was a motion.
Didn't you second his motion?
We're
25?
now seconding,
Oh, I'm
calling the
seconding his-
question.
Yes,
Yeah.
I can do that.
All
Okay,
right.
Thank you.
25-foot thing.
No, right now, all we're gonna vote on is ending debate.
Lampy.
Aye.
Ford.
Aye.
Bartz.
Aye.
Blanky.
Aye.
Smith. Schmid.
Aye.
Wetzel. Moldenhauer. Davis. Motion passed 7-2.
So we didn't end debate. We voted on the 25-foot.
No, we ended
We ended
debate.
debate on the 25-foot
Now we're gonna
amendment.
vote on,
Forgive me.
now we're gonna vote on the amendment of 25 feet. So if you want it to be 25 instead of 50, vote yes. If you don't, vote no. Are we all clear on that? All right.
Blanky.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Schmid.
Aye.
Wetzel.
Aye.
Moldenhauer. Davis. Lampy. Ford. Bartz.
Aye.
Motion passed 9-0.
Awesome. So now we're at an amended version. I'm chuckling because we're gonna vote 3 times on something that totally feeds into Alder Schmidt's comments about lack of efficiency in government, so. Okay, so now we're at an amended version of this ordinance that 50 in 2B should, A 2B, should read 25 instead of 50. Does anyone have other comments or questions? Yes, sir.
Can I just ask one question? When this was put together, why didn't you just come up with 25 feet if anyone was present? If there's no one present, it doesn't make any sense to have 25 feet.
I was not at Park and Rec. Do you care to? Sure.
As Alderman Smith alluded, this is something that came out of health like 2 years ago when I was sitting on health and Fred was sitting on health. This is something that we started off as a location-based piece, essentially so that we could start to put up very clear placards to say that please stop smoking on the playgrounds. And then this ordinance has bounced around a little bit. The first iteration essentially had more of an open-ended, let's give this to health director, park director, allow them to sketch out the areas. That came back to council. We took a look at those areas that were proposed, and the council gave pretty clear direction that the council wanted to say in terms of the areas that were going to be covered. So that got sent back down to Park. Park came back with a list. That got sent back down to Park again. Park came back with this rather specific list of places that you see now in A2B, all of these letters here. Basically, these are areas that are specific areas of the park, which the Park and Rec Commission basically felt was a balance of, let's say, these generally don't cover riverside places where people fish. However, any place where people are encouraged to regularly gather, including playgrounds, of course, any structure, and structures are already included generally, but this one makes it clear that it's open air essentially as well. Sports fields, the picnic areas, disc golf, the piers and kayak launches, community gardens, dog walk areas. So essentially part of the intent here is that These areas where we are encouraging people to have high use within the parks, where we basically have some sort of a gathering space for whether it's adult or child recreation, that these are the areas that are going to remain smoke-free, that there's no cigarette butts, there's no burns in there, and that basically we can have clear placards that are attached to objects as opposed to people, saying that this is where we would like people to not smoke. Smoke 25 feet away, that's fine.
But why couldn't it just have well said if anyone is present? I mean, if there's nobody around, what difference does it make?
Then we're getting a little bit into the, do we want cigarette butts on these things? It's far.
Okay.
So basically, this is also a cleanliness thing and trying to keep our staff in Park and Rec from cleaning up cigarette butts in areas that people are going to frequent. If they're 25 feet away, sure, they might still be there, but they're a little harder to see sometimes, and you don't have to run through as often for the place to look good.
Ms. Davis?
That's typically how smoking codes are written in the state law. They'll say within 25 feet of a UW dormitory or residence, within a certain amount of feet from a municipality building. So that's pretty consistent in how they are written.
Did you have your hand up?
So I'm going to be fascinated, these placards that we keep talking about with 11 items listed on it, or a placard at every one of these spaces. I thought we were headed to a place where we were going to say no smoking in the park or smoking only on the parking lots, which would have been a whole lot easier. And I know the chief's going to tell me that ignorance of the law is no excuse, but I don't know how the residents are going to know which part of the park I can't smoke in. And by the way, it's not a park, it's all of our parks. So how many signs do we have to put up to designate all these
All the
areas?
parks.
I know you got to put them up in all the parks, but how many signs do you have to put up to cover all those areas? The kayak launch is nowhere near the sports fields. So you
Ms.
can put a
Davis.
sign at both places?
So I don't know about putting up placards. That would be up to Park, Rec, and Forestry, but I think it's a very simple principle here. Don't smoke within 25 feet of where people gather in a park. That's all it is. And I think that's easy to communicate to residents, and I think that's easy to get the word out about. And the reasons are for health reasons. It's for the work, the extra money it takes to clean up. Those are valid reasons.
I'm going to disagree with my colleagues. This is a broad brush. This ordinance doesn't say anything specific relating to when people are present, and using the cost of cleanup is nothing more than a red herring. We already have anti-littering laws in the books at the state level. So putting another law in the book that says you can't litter when there's already one that says you can't litter is redundancy and the opposite of anything effective and efficient. There's 11 items that cover a very large swath of the city. So this list is, to be blunt, asinine. It really is. Like, I would agree with item number 9 in regards to heating and air ducts, because it's sucking into an enclosed space, into an enclosed building. That's not even an issue. But the issues I have are regards to the other ones. Like, I get playgrounds, and I don't think anybody would object to playgrounds, specifically when kids are present. If you're out there by yourself walking your dog, if you're in an area where dogs are permitted, because I know they're not in our parks, that's fine, you're by yourself. But some of these areas are so ambiguous in regards to scope, it's ridiculous. We're telling people they can't do something they're legally able to do because we don't like it. That's like saying you can't have a red car because I don't like a red car. And I get the health benefits, but it's only in an enclosed space. And for long periods of time. A short exposure isn't that big of a deal. I grew up around this stuff, and I don't smoke. I never have. I think it's disgusting. But just because I don't like it, doesn't mean I'm going to tell somebody else they can't do it. It just means I'm not going to spend time with them if they're doing it. It's not our job to tell people what to do. So I can't support this in any grounds.
Understood. Is that a hand raised, Mr.
That's a hand
Watson?
raise, yes, and
Sure.
then over there. When the smoking laws came in effect 10, 15 years ago in bars everywhere, bowling alley, I was against that just for the sake of not infringing on a bar / restaurant / bowling alley owner to have that, or patrons. Since it's been in, I love it, and I've not met anybody who doesn't. In this case, though, as has been said, it's kind of ambiguous. But also, as I drive around here for work, I come through school zones. It's 15 miles an hour, 25 miles an hour when children are present. As Alderman Moldenauer said, why can't you be out there if no one else is around? I don't smoke. My son and I used to go fishing on the pier by the tennis courts at night, late into the night. No one else is around. It's my son. If I should or wanted to, I should be able to smoke, although I never did. That's it.
Thank you. Are you raising your hand too, though? I will hop to him, but yes, sir.
So a few things that I wanted to address. I appreciate all the work that's been done by Park and Rec to try to find a compromise on this. Basically, the concern that I understand and I fully support is keeping the smoking away from children. People smoking in the playground area, and then again, the heating and air conditioning ducts, the enclosed areas. I can understand that. And as it was alluded to, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when the smoking ban went into effect in bars and restaurants, there was an unintended consequence. That unintended consequence was all of the smokers went outside directly in front of the doors to smoke. So now everyone had to walk through a cloud of smoke to get into the bars and restaurants. So by making designated smoking areas, which were proposed to be the parking lots, literally everyone who would visit a park would have to walk through the smoking area. You couldn't go around it because, if by definition, the parking lot is where you park your car. So you would have to go through this no matter what. So the next item that was mentioned is the litter. And the cigarette butts, I believe it was said in the memos, 10 years for them to decompose. I would challenge everyone here to walk through a park and see how many plastic water bottle caps you see. I guarantee you'll see dozens. Plastic takes up to 450 years to decompose. So, again, as Alder Schmidt said, the littering thing, there's an item already on the books. Lastly, I just want to throw a statistic at everyone. Gallup does a poll every year on smoking. In 1944, when the first year they did this poll, 41% of Americans said they were smokers. In 2023, that number is just 12%. So, even though I'm really on the fence because of some of the comments, but I'm going to support this, even though I feel it is somewhat of a solution in search of a problem.
What did you want to clarify?
I would ask a council member to amend the ordinance section 3 to change the date from June 18th, 2024 to a date that's at least a month or two out so that the city has time to notice this to the public before it takes effect.
I was going to get to that. Your dates on 1st and 2nd here too are a little bit off.
And those can be administratively adjusted to have the correct information, but the part in the section 3 we do need an amendment for.
You want a motion?
Let's decide a date before we make it. I don't want to try to make it on the fly because we want to change the date to a different date.
Correct.
I'm not allowed to offer you
How
that.
about January 1st?
Spring date so that we don't have winter service.
How about April 1st? I will move we change the date to April 1st.
2025.
2025, thank you.
April Fool's Day?
Yeah.
Change the date, please. Yeah, don't do the April 1st. Good point. I'm serious, don't. I'll be trying to communicate something that no one's going to believe is true, so.
Is there a start date to the parks when they open? I don't know.
No, they stay open,
year-round.
but we winterize. Christine, do you have Christine is online if anyone would like to ask her if she'd like if she has a suggestion.
The park's open, like the bathrooms and everything, we have them open by April 15th.
How about that?
Oh, so that's tax day.
That's fine. I don't have to convince people of,
Okay, April 15th, 2025.
You know what?
We'll make that the motion.
I think April 15th is my last day, so you can make it whatever
There
date.
you
No, I'm
go.
just kidding.
I'll second that.
All right, so we have a motion to amend to April 15th of 2025 with a second by Mr. Lampy. Does anyone want to debate that date change? Megan?
Board.
Aye.
Bartz. Blanky.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Schmidt. Wetzel. Moldenhauer.
Aye.
Davis. Lampy. Motion passed 9-0.
All right. So that passes. Yes, sir.
So I do appreciate Alderman Blanky's comments. I do want to clarify that this ordinance no longer has anything to do with parking lots as an allowed area. So intentionally, the Park and Rec Committee basically widened the areas significantly from the first draft that was offered by Park and Rec and came back. I guess I am somewhat distressed that there are folks who are finding the list of items here ambiguous. As in, you're unsure if you're in a swimming pool or not, or you're on a sports field or not. If there are problems with these, or you need to strike them, or you need to add them, but these are all areas that we felt that would be commonly in use by families, and tried our best in terms of basically providing a short, but still descriptive enough to describe to the average person where you are. You're in a disc golf course, you're on a pier, you're on a stage in a park. I mean, all of these things we hope are accessible enough by the general public that they can understand if they are in one of these areas or out of one of these areas.
Others? Yes, ma'am.
And I think this came up at one of our discussions. This is just simply a tool. It's a tool that I can use when I'm sitting on a bleacher and someone's smoking, or I can say, excuse me, there's no smoking here on the bleachers. It's just a tool, and you're equipping citizens who have asthma problems, health issues, to be able to kindly refer people to what the ordinance is. So I see it as a wonderful thing to enable people to have some agency to take care of themselves when they do have health issues.
Can I call the question, please?
I'm ready for this one now. All right, so there is a motion to call the question. I do need a second to that. Seconded by Mr. Bartz. It's not debatable, so Megan, would you, so we're just voting on ending debate. Megan?
Board. Bartz. Blanky.
No.
Smith. Schmidt.
No.
Wetzel. Moldenhauer. Davis.
Yes.
Lamp.
Yes.
You needed 6, right? So it fails. Okay, let's continue debating. Yes.
So I'm going to vehemently oppose this, and I have those health issues. I have documented asthma. I have burnt my lungs chemically before from previous employment. I still won't support it. I don't need to have an ordinance in the book as a private citizen go, Big Daddy government, I need you to send somebody with a badge and a gun to enforce this because I don't like this. And that's exactly what we're saying. We're saying I need a piece of paper to tell Officer Brower or Chief Brower or one of his officers to go interact with somebody I don't like and take their money through force if necessary because I don't like what they're doing. That's not the role of government, especially in regards to this. And to Alderman Lampy's point, it's not that I don't know if I'm in a pool or I don't know that I'm in a picnic area or I'm a pier. It's I may not know, unless I carry a 25-foot tape measure, if I'm going to be compliant with this huge area. Because this is all areas owned by the city. This is a massive area. We're not talking just a playground within 25 feet or the walking path or the entrance of a building. We're not providing any avenue for them to legally smoke in areas which they're paying taxes for. This is a slap in the face of every one of the residents. The ones who smoke and the ones who don't. This is a solution in search of a problem. And I travel a lot, I run a lot. I don't see this as being an issue other than in very niche cases where you maybe have a ball game or there may be a huge event at one of the parks and you're gonna have people walking through it that may not like it. As the poll that Alderman Blanky put out, the number of smokers has decreased exponentially. The documented health issues of long-term chronic smoking is terrible. The cost, I don't know how people afford it. It's like $9 or $10 a pack. It's super expensive. So, again, there are enough mechanisms in place to reduce this that we don't need to make this huge carte blanche area carved out that you can't do it. There's no exception that says if nobody's present, you're good to go. We're not providing them a smoking area. We're not providing them a receptacle to put the smokes in. That's what normally happens in a facility on a government installation when you take away smoking everywhere. You provide a designated area with a butt receptacle. Does it take some time? Yeah, but people eventually adapt to it. And it generally means not walking down the sidewalk smoking, not standing in front of a door smoking. You can't be by an air intake into a building. You can't be by a playground if there are kids present. But there's none of that in this ordinance. There's nothing in here that says, we understand that when people are present, maybe if there's minor children at the park, you can't smoke within 25 feet of the playground if children are present, or within the sidewalk walking into a building or into a bathroom. It doesn't do that. It's too broad brushed. There's nothing to account for any of those things. So to pass it as it is, it's insulting. It's lazy, and I can't support it.
Others? Mr. No? Okay. Mr. Smith? Okay.
Yeah, I know the sense that, you know, sometimes you can have something that's kind of simple and self-evident on its face and becomes one of the more discussed items that comes before our board. And all I'm going to say is a lot of the sentiments that I've heard about overregulation, generally I find them very attractive, and I tend to support most of them. In this particular instance, there is a discernible health issue, and I think this is a balanced approach which takes into account both the legitimate concerns of people that want to be in a healthful environment and those who have legitimate legal rights to participate in activities of their own choosing at a location that is owned by everybody. And so I was looking for a balanced approach. And the simple truth is this: like so many ordinances and regulations that are formulated by government, the vast majority wouldn't be necessary if everybody was kind and thoughtful and considerate of everybody else. That's really why this is here. Because while the vast majority of people who might be doing something that was offensive to somebody else are certainly going to be conscious of other people's interests and other people's sensitivities, some do not. And so here we have a balanced approach, recognizing the fact that in the imperfect world in which we live, not everybody is going to behave like we wished they would.
Any last thoughts, comments, or questions? Yes, sir.
But that's not what it says. It doesn't say that. I appreciate your sentiments in wanting to find a balanced approach in regards to mitigating a known long-term exposure for health risk, but the ordinance doesn't say that. Nowhere in this ordinance does it say if people are present. It doesn't. It's just carte blanche. So if you're by yourself on a pier fishing, this applies to you. So this is overreach. Like if it said playgrounds, within 25 feet of playgrounds, while children are present, you probably would have less issues with it. Enclosed spaces, not really going to be an issue. Sports fields, courts, and complexes, those are massive areas. If there's no one present, or it's just you and your buddy who have no issues with it, why is that an area? If it's a picnic with just you and your family and no one else is present, what's the problem? But nowhere in the ordinance does it carve out those exceptions. It just says, bam, there it is, by yourself or not. So that's not a balanced approach. That's drastic overreach. I would have no problem supporting something that actually makes sense. But this doesn't. You took what we didn't like before and made it bigger and made it more encompassing, not less. This isn't balanced. This is a slap in the face. Because there's nowhere and there's a precedent. So I would kick this back to committee to address those issues and make something that's actually usable, not just this blanket approach that covers everything.
Anybody else? Yes.
So I do want to address the reduction in scope. The council did have a version in front of it that essentially excluded all park areas except for parking lots. This one represents a substantially smaller in scope area, smaller in scope even tonight since we've reduced the 50-foot radius down to 25. One of the things that is explicitly not listed in here as a restricted area are walking paths. That was one of the ones that we excluded. So for example, Fannie Lewis Park, there would be an extensive area where smoking would be permitted in a park on a walkway. That wouldn't necessarily constitute any of these.
Anybody else have anything new we'd like to add? Megan.
Lampy. Ford.
Aye.
Bartz.
Aye.
Blanky.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Schmid.
No.
Wetzel. Moldenhauer.
No.
Davis.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-3.
All right. Let's move to resolutions. The first is Exhibit 9646. This is a resolution to discontinue the public way on Jones Street near and about its intersection with North First Street. This is here from me and the Plan Commission. Yes?
Who were the three that voted no?
Schmid, Moldenhauer? I had Schmid and Moldenhauer.
I got 7-2,
What did you announce?
6-3.
But what did you jot down? Did you vote no or yes? He voted yes. So 7-2. Thank you. All right. Exhibit 9646, discontinuing a public way. Is there a motion for that? Motion by Mr. Bartz, second by Mr. Board. Questions? You did motion, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay, just making sure. I mean, you guys are like buddies. You're so close over there. I just see arms go up and I don't know. So, yeah, that's what it looks like for what it's worth. I'm like scanning an entire room and I just see arms fly up in the air. No comments? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Next is Exhibit 9654. This is a resolution to withdraw from the Wisconsin Public Employers Group Health Insurance Program. This is here from me and the Finance Committee.
I'll make
Ms.
that
Davis.
motion.
Motion by Ms. Davis. Second by Mr. Wetzel. Comments, questions? Yes.
Table indefinitely. 2/3 vote.
Listen, I hear you on the 2/3 vote thing, but there are 4 other columns I have to check in on. Like, is that interruptible? Do you need a second? I know, but there's also like 14 items, and you all are putting me through Robert's Rules gymnastics today. So you made a motion to lay on the table indefinitely. It does need a second. Is there a second to lay on the table indefinitely? Okay, that motion fails for lack of second. Back to debate. Yes.
Of all the emails I've received on this issue, not one of them were in favor of it. In fact, of all the issues in the last 18 months, these emails have been the most lengthy, the most well-written, and articulated points that I've received. So on that, I'm impressed, and I commend everyone who wrote those emails. I was actually kind of shocked that I got so many on this issue. So as a result, I can't support it. Like, I get the short-term fix, but the long-term if penalty terrifies me, because insurance is expensive. And some of the emails indicated that they have options, and good on for them, and they recognize that, but not everybody has those extra options. And if you go from a known variable to an unknown variable for a potential change of all the things that out-of-pocket expenses that go up, that's a lot of money for families. And some of those drug costs aren't covered. So I can't support it. I can't support pulling out of a system that is known variables, known quantities that families can budget and account for, and they know exactly what they're going to get because they've been in it long enough to know how it works year after year after year. regardless of the cost. It's a known quantity that they can account for. I can't jeopardize their health and long-term beings. We just got done debating a health issue. And now we're gonna rip their health insurance out?
Oh, that's,
But that's the perception though. They're still gonna have health insurance. They're still gonna have an option to have health insurance that's gonna be partially employee provided, partially individual paid for. That's still gonna be a thing. But it's not gonna be the same. At least that's the perception. And with the potential penalties for getting back in, that's extra money. It's gonna cost us extra. I can't support this.
Mr. Stevens, would you like to address a couple of the items and just provide some clarity? I just feel like that's probably a good place to jump off from, based on your comments. Maybe, yeah, go ahead. Well, I was gonna say, like, I was gonna be the things he touched on, so that you could make sure you highlighted those.
Okay. Out-of-pocket expenses is one of those that is definitely a concern to individuals. The ETF plan has an out-of-pocket, just like any other plan has an out-of-pocket. And if you were to read the medical maximum out-of-pocket limit, I'm reading from an ETF 2024 plan year, the total out-of-pocket maximum is $9,450 for an individual, $18,900 for a family. Most of the time, those things don't apply, even though those are the maximum out-of-pockets, because what we're accustomed to hearing is the deductible amount, $500 and $1,000, and the Dean HMO plan has a higher deductible of $1,750 and $3,500 for the family. The difference does come back down to definitions of what's included and what's not included. The ETF maximum out-of-pocket, or the medical deductible, does not include prescriptions, as an example. So for an individual to say, I am only ever going to pay out of pocket $500 is actually potentially inaccurate, and each of these is a case by case. We could have 200 people, 200 families on the plan, and 200 different options the way it lands. But to utilize the deductible as your maximum out of pocket on the current plan is an inaccurate statement. For two parts. The emergency rooms are above and beyond the deductible. It's a copay, so that exceeds the $500, $1,000. And then any prescription drugs are also not part of that definition. The ETF document says prescriptions do not count towards your deductible. So it's not necessarily an apples to oranges comparison, in that the plan that we've sought to find as similar as possible has an all-inclusive maximal out-of-pocket that is including the deductible plus RX plus office copays. And so one would have to run through a number of different scenarios. I tried to do just a couple of very simple ones to the presentations that we made, but it could be 1,000 different options to go through this. Can I guarantee that it will never cost more on the new plan? No, not at all. There is no guarantees on that, but looking at the plan on its face value to say all I ever have to pay is the deductible is an inaccurate statement, because it does not include RX, it does not include emergency room visits. The new plan does have some of those things. So that's just one area of concern that people have voiced, obviously. We heard them even today, and I hear it. We cannot secure a plan that's exactly the same as what the state plan is. There are some options that are different, and admittedly, the HMO is more of a traditional HMO versus the state created its own plan design that did not include some of the things that a traditional HMO has. The other area of concern is dealing with retiree options. There are 26 individuals that are part of the past city employment lists, and of those 26 individuals, 17 of them are age 65 or older. There is a capability of those 17 people to stay on the Wisconsin ETF plan. Ours is called a local group plan, but they also have an opportunity to go on what's called an individual plan. So these, of the list of 26 retirees, 17 have an opportunity to continue on the plan that they are on, or a very similar plan to that. So that leaves about 9 individuals. Of those 9, 4 of them have retired in less than 18 months from today. And so they will be able to be part of our new plan because of COBRA continuation, federal law. So they will have that capability of continuing on that plan. 2 of the individuals are firefighters, and want to make sure it's clear for everybody's understanding that anybody that is under a bargaining unit, whether they are over 65 or under 65, have an ability to continue on an individual plan on the ETF. So they are not excluded from the continuation of staying on the state-based plan into the future. So my list is down to 3 individuals, admittedly, that are under the age of 65 that I don't have any other solution for of the 26 that I've started with. We have not yet passed out anything to anybody that's involved with this, knowing that this needed to be discussed and approved here. So there was no need or necessity, if you will, for any advance notification because I don't know where people are going to land. The law requires us to give to this list of 26 people a 60-day notification on the change. And so with a change of January 1 effective date, then obviously the month of November and December would satisfy that 60 days. Our plan is to get them notification, if this is approved, this week yet, which obviously would be in excess of 90 days. Part of the options that we're trying to lay out and meet with individuals to strategize on behalf of this list of people include the following: staying on Wisconsin ETF as an individual covered is an option, like I said, for a lot of these individuals. Utilizing a Medicare advisor for looking into the costs of utilizing a Medicare supplement plan outside of ETF. Please understand that if you are a retiree on the plan, age 65 or older, you must opt for Medicare A and B. So they're already on Medicare, and the ETF plan is reduced in its premium price because this is considered, if you will, a supplemental plan for the individuals that are on it. Medicare is considered primary, and so there is a reduced cost for these individuals. But we're meeting with a local insurance broker that I've worked with for a good 15 plus years probably, and her forte is helping people transition from a group health plan to what can a retiree use and what is the best option for that. That's through Avid Risk here in Watertown. And so we'll meet with her tomorrow to make sure that we've got some of these strategies figured out to be able to pass on to these other individuals. A third option to this list of people is to honestly look at the marketplace options. There are individuals that can help in this regard. We're going to name phone numbers and email addresses, include those things in the letter to help individuals. If there is a family income of less than $60,000, which for a retiree may in fact be the case, then the marketplace has reduced premiums for that as a different option. So we're working through as many potential solutions for the retiree batch that is impacted with this change. And also, I'll leave it at that and open it up to any other questions that might be in your head.
Ms. Davis.
So we received a lot of really thorough information, and if you haven't had a chance yet, I urge you to go into the Finance Committee's packets. That information was very, very helpful. Here's the key piece of information, though, that we need to really latch on to. Because we have a commitment to honor contracts for the fire, for the police, we have raises coming for the fiscal year 25, and because the health insurance has increased about 16%, and I should say it this way, in order to provide a health insurance that is equivalent to what they had previously, in order to do that through ETF, it would require an increase of 16%. So that means last year our budget for health insurance was $2.1 million. This year it would go up to 2.4. That's an increase, and you should write this number down. It might help. It helped me. That's an increase of about $390,000. Here's what's going to happen, and I really don't see that we have any other choice but to go forward with this plan that is being proposed tonight. If we stay with ETF and increase our budget by $390,000, along with the other salary commitments that we have, we will exceed the state's incentive program called Expenditure Restraint Program. That incentive program by the state is there to help city budgets grow their budgets slowly. If we exceed that Expenditure Restraint Program, we will not receive as a city $440,000, give or take. So if you add that increase in health insurance of $390,000 to that expenditure restraint incentive that we will lose of $440,000, we are then missing, or we have to make up $830,000. There is no way for our budget to be able to withstand that kind of a hit of $830,000 unless we raise property taxes significantly to cover that. Now, there are some other options, and none of them are pleasant. In order to stay with ETF, we could reduce the amount that the employer pays in order to reduce costs, but that would increase deductibles. That would increase the amount that they pay every month. That's not ideal because that's essentially a salary reduction. Nobody wants to do that. So there has been significant amount of planning and thinking and weighing and going back and forth, and nobody wants to do this. But we really have our hands tied this year. So this program, this Dean program that is being proposed and that was on our screen, is a solid program. It was a program that is in many ways very similar to what was used before, although different in other ways, that's true. But what it allows us to do is to be able to provide a solid health insurance plan to the employees, while at the same time trying to minimize the increase to our budget so that we could possibly, as we have in many, many years, qualify for that $440,000 for expenditure restraint. So hopefully that's helpful for you. It was helpful for me to be able to see how those numbers worked out. And so for that reason, I just don't know that we have any other choice than to go forward with this proposal that has been well researched and I think is well laid out for us.
Yes, Mr. Bartz.
I just wanted to ask Mark a question on that, and I know this was covered in the past as well, just for some clarity. But what are the numbers of people that are ready on Dean and versus the ones that are not? I'm just understanding the amount of people that will be impacted.
Sure. I have budgeted currently that we have 120 families in single of 51, so about 170 family units are on our group health plan. Of that number, I don't have the exact breakdown, but I know my percentages. 90% of that 170 are on one of those two plans, and it's almost exactly the same number that are on Mercy as they are on Dean. So for an individual that's on the current Dean plan, they will have a reduction in their monthly premium sharing going from about $540 to $260, a 52% reduction for almost half of our people. And then if you are on the Mercy plan, there would be an increase for those that are on the current plan. Next year's rates would be monthly $212, and the Dean quote again is $261. So it is an increase for Mercy, it is a decrease for Dean, so it's 50-50. The Mercy increase is approximately 24% of the monthly premium amount. Difficulty, obviously, and the benefit of Wisconsin ETF is the options that are provided to individuals based on their family's location, zip code of home. We attempted a hard sell to get two companies to give us a dual choice option. Mercy and Dean were those two companies. Mercy dropped out. They opted to not give it to us because they felt they would be losing more of their current percentage because we are more of a Dean territory, and you have to go south to get to the Mercy providers.
Before I go around the room, there was questions from Mr. Schmidt about the excuse me, the surcharge.
Yes. If a municipality or group leaves the Wisconsin ETF, ETF does not want to see you back for a 3-year period of time. Now that's what their guidebook says, but I do know of 1 or 2 communities that have actually been able to knock on the door of ETF and were allowed in during that period of time. But setting that aside, we are subject, because of the size of our employee count of 50 plus, we will be subject, if we were to be interested in going back into ETF in year number 4, to an underwriting process because of our size, quantity of bodies. And so that underwriting process does have the capability of subjecting us to a surcharge, and on the average, the surcharge has been a 2-year surcharge starting at one amount and then 50% reduced on the year number 2. So that would be year number 4 and 5 if we were to pursue moving back to ETF into the future. It takes a crystal ball that I don't own to figure out what that future holds. One thing that I do know is that I currently have no ability to interact with the state to ask them for any what I would refer to as transparent information. I don't know what our loss ratios are. I don't know how many people hit their deductibles. I don't know what the out-of-pocket is for people because the state doesn't share any of that information. Moving forward to an outside plan such as Dean provides to our broker an aggregate of all of those kinds of things so that they have the capability of shopping into the future for us. So I look at that surcharge as a stopgap, and it'll be something that we discuss with finance, kind of run some numbers on what an approach would be on setting aside future money for that as that stopgap to alleviate that unknown factor. But my hope is that we don't have to use it because we don't look to the ETF into the future. I can indicate that when we looked for pricing, I insisted that we have a 3-year not to exceed guarantee. And so using those 3 years, year number 2 and year number 3 numbers, which are guaranteed numbers in our contract that we would sign with Dean, comparing those to the announced increases that are not guaranteed with ETF, each of the next 3 years, I would still be spending less money overall in the total premiums outpaid versus what the premiums would be with ETF. One of the other opportunities that we have with moving outside of ETF is to not have to live under the limits of an 88-12 breakdown. We have that subjected to us, even though admittedly, City of Watertown hasn't played by those rules. We found out we were not playing by the correct set of rules. We've been utilizing the 90-10 breakdown, and that had been removed from our capability years ago. We just didn't change the way we were doing it. No fault of anyone, we just didn't follow the rules. And because of a state portal software change that they're making, it came to light that, wait a minute, what do you mean you're paying 90%? You shouldn't have been doing that. And so we would be mandated, if we stay in ETF, we're going to be mandated down to the 88%. The numbers that I've utilized are an 88-12 percentage breakdown for the new plan, but outside of ETF, that doesn't mean we have to stay with that 88-12. We have the ability, because that's not a subjection outside of the Wisconsin plan. So the hope and the going forward is it could be a higher percentage if we wanted to, if we could afford it, depending on what the increase is for a future year.
So I think to put a button on that, what you said is the Finance Committee will be considering the surcharge allocation. We have preliminarily contacted the auditor. We know the amount-ish to our best guess. In which category, audit-wise, to put those dollars in. We'll take that to the Finance Committee and confirm their comfortability with that.
Yes.
I think that answered the surcharge concept. Okay.
So lots of good information gives me a better picture of what we're actually looking at. And I appreciate Alderman Davis pointing out those additional constraints that we are facing. So that gives me more perspective in regards to the seriousness of this issue, which doesn't distract from the fact that my big concern is if we do this, it saves us money now. And we have a contract that says it's going to guarantee this number for the next 3 years, you said, right, Mark?
Yes.
And not to exceed.
Not to exceed.
Increase.
Okay, so that's at least locked in for the next 3 years. So 36 months effectively. That's a decent amount of time to lock in on a rate, which I can respect. But one of the concerns that I have, and that was brought to my attention, is it's not just the cost factor or not just the potential penalties. It's the fact that when you change insurance plans, regardless if it's municipality or private, you run the risk of changing primary care. You run the risk of what's covered. And I understand there's 1,000 nuances for each individual plan and each individual family and how all that breaks down. I understand it's extremely complicated. Having dealt with insurance through those issues and transitions, I feel the pain, especially when it comes to government insurance. But I can't disregard what the pressure I've received in this is. And there's a lot of information. My concern is in 3 years when that contract runs out, we could potentially be in the exact same spot we're in now, facing this cap where we have to sit underneath of or face these huge penalties. And that's hundreds of thousands of dollars is a lot of money. Even in our budget, that's a lot of money. And it's not my money, it's not our money, it's taxpayers' money, which is what I'm looking at. So I don't want us to make this without a lot of thought digging into this, because this consequence not affects us, it affects hundreds of people who are our employees. And it's our responsibility to do the right by them, plus the tens of the thousands that are taxpayers. So I have concerns with this, and I know we've looked at this pretty regularly since we've been here. Almost yearly, I think we look at this every couple of years.
I've evaluated it a handful of times in my 11 years.
So I think this, where we're at now is we're in a position of unintended consequences from decisions made by people who aren't us at a much higher level over a decade ago. As a result of that legislation passing, it's put us in this position. This is an unintended consequence because we've taken away people's cost.
Expenditure restraint's been around since about the 70s.
What I'm
and the
saying
city's
is
been in it for a long time. I don't know how long.
But the cost of health insurance relating to a 2008 bill caused insurance to skyrocket. It took away people's ability to choose freely.
Yeah, that I can't
So
speak
that
to.
is an unintended consequence.
Understood. Okay.
So that's what I'm getting at. Maybe not the restraint thing, because that's a completely different vein of government.
Yeah.
But this is an unintended consequence that now we're forced to deal with, and our employees and their families are forced to suffer directly as a result of that. And we got to figure out how to make the best decision we can. And I'm really wrestling with the fact that this is a better decision.
So I just want to provide some factual context. Mark and I have been in-depthly evaluating this for, I would say, nearly 5 months. So I don't want any notion that this is a willy-nilly, like.
No, I get
storm-
that it's not.
Yeah, use it like, oh, we need to really carefully consider this. I mean, and we've been providing information to the people sitting in this room and, you know, the 190 others that work for us, 180 others that work for us. As soon as we have something concrete, we've been providing that to them. So I just wanted to give you some context that we're doing our best to keep people informed and considering it. And Mark provided some information, and Ms. Davis did too, on cost, and I'm reminding you on your screen that there's a cost no matter which way we cut this. So there's 16%, right, which is on your screen.
Screens are blank on this side.
Oh. Everyone's screens are out over there? Huh? Lisa, can you, I love just talking to Lisa as if she's a ghost in the room. Lisa, can you come in and see if you can troubleshoot that one? If not, I'm trying to show it to y'all on the screens up here too. But, okay, who else? What else? Yes, Mr. Lampy.
So this came forward on recommendation of finance, and I think Alderman Davis provided an excellent summation of majority of finance in the position. And just a couple of other things that I wanted to hit on. We did hear from Mark about the feedback loop that is not present in the current plan that we're hoping to get with this plan. And the other thing I thought we would probably just restate, since we do this pretty much every time we talk about this, but there is a contractual 90-10 split that's not going to be touched as we're talking about perhaps adjusting 88-12 or any of those ratios. In finance, I do want to present a couple of things from a different perspective. One of the ones that we have highlighted tonight is the retiree options, and I definitely appreciate the depth of evaluation and the compassion that really have developed as you're trying to find options for the folks. In terms of being prepared to support this at this time, I guess I would like to see that process completed. I think we're getting close. Again, I definitely appreciate everything that's going in there. We have a couple of individuals. Is there gap coverage? Is there something else that potentially would essentially prevent us from just cutting them off at the end of the year? You've identified a population, which is fantastic, but I guess I'm also open to some additional subsidization, basically between what is likely going to be the healthcare option and what we would have provided underneath the existing path for a finite number of years. The other piece that we keep staring at here is exactly as Alderman Davis has stated at. As a finance committee, this is pretty much what we've been staring at for weeks. It's well presented. It basically provides a fairly stark situation where we start off in staring at that expenditure restraint number up there, and we wonder how we're going to get under that with that very next line, which is also starting with a 6, with 2 more numbers left to fit under there. The one other place that I don't think I'm necessarily set in stone, and we're going into budget discussions where we talk these things out, not set on the 4%. Also not set on, remaining under the expenditure restraint program. I think as a couple people have noted at finance, that's something that we're going to have to seriously look at, whether or not we want to still be part of that in future years. This might be the year that we finally get out. Looking at numbers like that, where we're considering a very stark situation where we have employees who are either going to be unhappy with the insurance changes that we make. We forego wage increases at all for non-represented employees. We don't have a whole lot of good choices this year because we do not have, the city's not had a whole lot of growth over the past year. We're going to try to fix that with some of the housing improvements. But basically, we're constrained as long as we remain in this expense restraint program by inflation and how fast we build new stuff in the city. And that number continues to reflect the fact that inflation is regarded as having gone way down, and we're not building a whole lot of stuff in the city fast enough for that number to go back up. So in general, I don't think I'm quite ready to support this. I think in terms of perhaps additional supports, especially to take care of retirees, I would like to hear a little bit more information, not in open, of course, but basically in terms of some of the information that especially some of the senior and key employees have provided in terms of whether or not this is something that's a deciding factor in whether they stay with the city or not. I'd like to get a little bit more of a feel for that before lending support for this.
So I clarified earlier, we have to notify ETF by October 1st.
October 15th has been their traditional date, but because of this major infrastructural change in their software system, they not really well advertised, but they changed that October 15 to an October 1 to give them a better advance to be notified of those things. So if we do not inform the state that we are departing, we are subjected to stay.
You can clarify that.
The October 1 date would be the easier one to reach and match. I believe the October 15th date was, if not an administrative rule in the statute itself, and that would control over a department's unilateral decision to change that date to October 1st. So we may be able to argue it if it's submitted by October 15th still. However, that may require a lot more in litigation expenses than I would recommend that we try to do. So if it can be approved by October 1st, that would be my strong recommendation. If we have to do October 15th, we may be able to push it, but we may have to fight with the state at that point.
I want to just provide one other piece of, one piece of fact. I was given the budget today, or maybe yesterday, talked about it today. It incorporates this, which can change, I mean, we know that, but it incorporates this, that general fund budget is $2 million over, $2.4 million over. So I have to cut $2.4 million out of a budget that includes a 4% for non-union, and that includes things I can't cut, like I need a new computer. So our department heads were told to give a 0% increase beyond payroll and health care. In doing that, we knew some would be over, like the cost of body camera footage retention is astronomical. For good reason, we have to keep it. But I mean, that cost goes up. The chief can't cut that. Chief Rainin has similar expenses. Those maintenance contracts go up. So my point being, I can't just cut that 2.4 million like a broad brush and cut it out. So it's built with this, and I still have to cut nearly I have to cut $2.4 million. So I just offer that as fact to help inform your timeline. I'm going to go to Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, because he had a chance. So I want to give you a chance first.
Every now and then, we address an issue here at the council that is challenging beyond belief, in some ways almost intractable. In this particular instance of making a decision relating to our approach to insurance, it has to be seen in the context of the broader budget and the financial well-being of the city as a whole. And this is one of those instances where I think extraordinary commendation is due to those who have been working this through for the benefit of the city. I start with the leadership of our city, our mayor, the excellent financial advice and hard work that's being put forth by our finance director, and a recognition of the fact that they realize that as difficult as this issue is, and as virtually certain that it is not going to be perfect, it is the time when this issue needs to be addressed. You can keep kicking it down the road, but it is not going to get easier. And I think it takes great foresight, great courage, and a perspective on the well-being of the city as a whole to even undertake this. And so I take my hat off to the mayor, to our finance director, and then over the past several months, as I have received many communications on this topic, I've been trying as best I can to follow the work of the Finance Committee, which has been working this through in as diligent an effort as I could have ever imagined. They have done a commendable job. They have been extremely transparent in what has been ongoing through the minutes and so forth. And I'm the first to admit, as in any difficult decision, there are no certainties. In fact, there are risks that we can be sure will be out there. But I have tremendous confidence that just as this has been studied and the recommendation from those who we have tasked to be involved with this and to bring forth the best prospect to our council as a whole, we will deal with risks. I believe this is the best option. I am tremendously thankful for the leadership that we have on this and the forthcoming manner in which this is going to fit into a difficult budget year, and that because of this extraordinary effort, our city is well positioned to deal with a tough financial period, and I am confident we will come out well, because I am confident in the people that are dealing with this on a committed and long-term basis. So I just say thank you to all of you involved.
Thank you. One second, let me check over here to make sure there's no one that hasn't spoken that wants to talk. Mr. Schmidt.
So it's not related to cost. Alderman Lampy, thank you for bringing attention back to an issue that is, from what I understand, a very distinct change in function from what we have now for insurance to the proposed new one. And that is what you call the data loop in regards to some of the metrics that we can't track right now. I'm a numbers guy. I know you are as well. I love analytics and I love to track things because it's fun. I like to see patterns. However, this is one area we don't have any business in. I don't need to know of the 171 employees that we have as a city, approximately, because I don't know how the exact number is. I don't need to know which ones are using deductible. I don't need to know how much they're spending on, that we're paying on prescriptions. I don't need to know that kind of information about their personal health and identifying information. I don't, not as an employee. That's not my business. My business is to know that it's being paid, we're doing our part, and that's it. I don't need to know what they're using for, if it's compliant with the plan that they have and the options they picked with as an employee. That information, when companies do that, can be used potentially against an employee down the road. Not saying that we would.
I have to inject. It's de-identified, just so you know. The data is a summary, so I just want to offer that to you.
And I know they sanitize it as much as they can, but with a small enough data set, with a little bit of effort, you could probably sort it out pretty quickly. Because I've seen it happen. Not that it would, but that is a definite concern I have in regards to that data loop. So that's a privacy issue that I have a concern with, and I appreciate Alderman Lantry bringing attention to it that doesn't have the numbers. I'm staring at these numbers on my screen. Those are a lot of numbers. That's a big number. That's $23,000 or $23 million total. Looking at that, if you factor them all, if you add them all together, that's a lot.
So our current budget is 20.4 million. We can only increase it 696,000 to stay in expenditure restraint. If we, those four expenses that you see would add it 1.2 million. So yeah, 1.26.
So these are huge numbers, and I respect the pain of those numbers and the pain of having to take a budget that says this, and our numbers say this, and we got to cut to get back to this. That's a hard position to be in. But like Alderman Lampy said, I don't know, I'm not comfortable with as it is now to move forward, separating us from the system.
Anybody else? Yes.
I echo what Alder Smith said, totally. Thank you to the Finance Committee, Mr. Stevens, for all the work. I know the last couple of months, the Finance Committee has been beating this out. All 9 of us here could attend any finance meeting and be in part with all the conversation. It's not like we're thrown here tonight sight unseen. If we are, shame on us. My big concern was for the retirees. Mr. Stevens did an eloquent job of explaining that again. In my careers, I've had to change insurance. The company I've been with for 11 years, we've changed insurance 2 or 3 times. It's never fun. You get used to something for 2 years. When you get used to it, then they change it on you. And it's no fun. But I know with the Finance Committee, who has hashed this out with the mayor as a chairperson, has done an admirable job. Concern for the city, concern for the employees as well. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anybody else? Oh, I thought you were. That was a total pump fake. You reached for your mic.
Just on a comment on the
Yeah.
information. With the use of a broker, I won't see any information at any
sure.
time. It's all personal health information, and so any reporting goes from an insurance company to the broker in aggregate, and I don't even see that level of detail if we move forward with this. So I won't ever have a list of names. There won't be any details that I would ever see. It's just how many people, how many family units hit their deductible. I would see a number.
Yes.
Could I ask a question? Once we have that information, it helps us in shopping around, right?
That's
Or
correct.
could help us,
Yes, very much so.
because we can show how healthy we are.
Yes.
Too soon to say because we're not smoking in parks. Okay, before I ask for one last comment, what's that? I'm not going to debate because I'm not allowed to, but I am going to say this, so please let me. No one wants to be in this position. I don't want to be in it. None of the 9 people in this room want to be in it. It is an uncomfortable place to be, but because of what you see on the screen, it is a place we are being forced to be, from my perspective. So just wanted to say that. Any last comments or questions? Megan.
Davis.
Aye.
Lampy. Board.
Aye.
Bartz.
Aye.
Blanky.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Schmid.
No.
Wetzel.
Aye.
Moldenhauer. Motion passed 7-2.
Okay, thank you. All right, our next item is Exhibit 9655. This is a resolution to modify Fund 15. This is the Public Health Emergency Preparedness Budget. This is here from me and the Finance Committee.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Moldenhauer, seconded by Mr. Wetzel. Comments or questions? Megan.
Moldenhauer. Davis. Lampy. Board. Bartz. Blanky.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Schmid. Wetzel. Motion passed 9-0.
Next is Exhibit 9656. This is a resolution to update our 2024 payroll resolution to change the media productions manager pay grade from to grade H on the city's pay table. This is here from me and the Finance Committee. Ms. Davis. Oh,
sorry.
Ms. Davis.
I'll make that motion.
Second, Mr. Lampy.
Yes.
Questions? Yes, sir.
I ask this pretty much regularly. Can we get the numbers associated with the base pay on here for a dollar figure? Because I know it's published on our website, but it should be easily accessible so they can see what is going to at a base level.
So you would like it to say,
So
well, it's
H-
not, here's the thing, though. It's not a specific dollar value, it's a range. So if you want it to be,
Put the range on there.
okay.
That's
Okay.
just, that's easier. That way
Who
it's.
can remember that? The three of us? We're the three that look at agendas. So if I don't, tell me it again. I apologize. Others? Yes, sir.
So I would just share, I mean, I have a pay table that I keep with me, just kind of as a decoder ring for
Decoder.
these pieces. I believe we basically moved this position, since it didn't state where it came from. The recommendation was basically to move it up one letter grade, which generally is, I'm gonna eyeball this thing, I mean, that's about a $2 an hour change for this position.
Can we also make sure that the pay table, we can put it on like the employee resources page? So that just the table's there, easy access. Others? Megan?
Davis?
Aye.
Mampi? Ward? Bartz? Blinky?
Aye.
Smith? Schmid? Wetzel? Moldenhauer? Motion passed 9-0.
All right, next is Exhibit 9657. This is a resolution to approve the state municipal financial agreement for the citywide bike and pedestrian network plan. This is here from me and the Finance Committee. Mr. Schmid. Motion by Mr. Schmid, seconded by Mr. Lampy. Any questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, our last exhibit is Exhibit 9658. This is a resolution to approve the state municipal financial agreement for the South Church Street Shared Use Path, again from me and the Finance Committee. Mr. Schmid. Motion by Mr. Schmid, second by Mr. Moldenhauer. Discussion from anyone? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, we are at the point in our agenda where we have comments from citizens present. Would anyone that's stuck around like to come up? Or anyone remotely? All right, with that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn. Mr. Schmid? Motion by Mr. Schmid, second by Ms. Davis. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned.